In this episode, we close out the Halloween season by taking a look at some forgotten 90s monster toys. So, stick around. Hello, fellow dorks and dorkettes, and welcome to Nostalgia Syndrome. My name is Rob, and in this episode, like I said, this is the closing video of the Halloween season here at the channel. And it's actually a little bit of a bridge over to next month's theme, which is 90s November. So, like I said, in this episode, we will be taking a look at forgotten 90s monster toys. So, what are we waiting for? Let's get to our first monster toy on the list. Our first forgotten 90s monster toy comes from a toy company called Ilco, and this was released in 1990. These are Monster Balls. Now, Monster Balls were, of course, inspired by Mad Balls. A lot of things were inspired by Mad Balls at that time. But these are officially licensed Universal Monster Balls that feature 4 of the most famous of the Universal monsters. You have Dracula, Frankenstein, the werewolf, and the mummy. Now, these seem to be right down the line of perfectly molded and accurate portrayals of the Universal monsters. There's nothing funny or silly or gross about them like Mad Balls. These are very plain to be matter of fact. I mean, I think they're pretty cool, especially the Wolfman. And you know me, I like my werewolves. So I think out of any of these balls, I would definitely get the werewolf one. To be honest, I had a hard time at first trying to find these out on the secondary market because whenever you put the words monster and ball together, you get a plethora of Mad Balls and Mad Ball inspired toy lines, like Ugly Balls and things like that. So when I did finally stumble upon these, I was quite shocked at how much they go for. So either you're a Universal Monster collector, a horror movie collector, or you just like to collect balls, these might be something right up your alley. Our second monster toy is a toy line that came directly from the 80s, that bridged its way into the 90s, only on a much smaller scale. These are Baby Boglins, released by Action GT in 1991. Now, I need to mention that in a year's time, in 1992, there are mini Boglins that will be released by Ideal. These Baby Boglins are kind of like the perfect in-between size of the original Boglin by Mattel and the mini Boglins. These are little finger puppet Boglins that arrive to you in a little egg. Now, I have found online 6 in-package pictures of these little eggs, and they tell you which Boglin is inside. So it's not like today's blind bag fiascos. You know exactly which Boglin you were getting. But the deeper I dug, I found that there were a lot more released. I've seen huge group shots with drastically different Boglins, different colors, different styles than the 6 that I have found. I think it's kind of funny that The original 80s Mattel Boglins had these articulated, awesome eyes. But the baby Boglins just have plastic googly eyes. Now, they are attached on the inside, but they aren't articulated like the original. Like I said, these are small finger puppets, but they are actually a good size when you add the tail into the mix. A lot of the ones that I've found on the secondary market are drastically deteriorated because of the material that they're made out of. Now, luckily, my Boglin seems to be in pretty good shape, but I'm very scared that one day he'll look like these guys. Now, the prices that are up on the screen are actually an out of the package baby Boglin to one still in the egg in package. So you can see that the price goes pretty reasonable to pretty high pretty quickly. But if you're a Boglin collector, these might be something that you need to search for.
Introducing Boglins. When you let baby Boglins out of their gruesome little eggs, they're fingerlingly frightful. Some even glow in the dark. Big Boglins have moving eyes and are really scary. Boglins make great pets. Some glowing in the dark. I like the hairy ones. They're extra gross. Boglins, all sold separately from Irwins.
Our next monster toy is actually from a stop-motion animated Saturday morning TV show that ran from 1984 to 1985. This is Bump in the Night. The toys were produced by Street Players in 1994. Now, the show ran for 2 seasons, and I think it netted about 27 individual episodes. The toys, there were 6 in total released. You had 2 different styles, 3 each of the main characters. The 3 main characters were Molly Coddle, Mr. Bumpy, and Squishington. Now, you had those 3 characters in a bendy form and a posable form. There were also some released as fast food toys. Whichever restaurant it is escaping me at the moment. So, a lot of the versions I've seen on the secondary market actually were the fast food versions of these figures. It seems that these are kind of hard to come by, but you wouldn't know that because of the price that they go for. These are quite affordable if this was something that you really wanted to collect. You can get these figures for an absolute steal, which is really cool. I mean, I for one kind of like the posable Mr. Bumpy. I mean, I think it's just a really solid, cool little monster toy. And it's posable, so you can add him to your Playtime universe any which way that you want. And I think that's really cool. I remember this show, just not vividly, but I do remember it coming on, and I remember catching a few episodes of it. I thought it was pretty cool, and I think these toys are pretty cool as well. Our 4th Forgotten 90s monster toy is more of a novelty, but it's something that specific collectors are searching for. These are Shaken Mutants by Spearhead, and they were released in 1994. Now, the Shaken Mutants are Halloween decorations for the most part. They hang, and when they're activated, they shake and make ghoulish noises. But if you notice, they're made very similar to an 80s toy line, one that we mentioned earlier in this episode, and that is Boglins. They have the same body styling, the same material was used to make them, the same type of molding process, and they still have the arms and everything just like the Boglins, and the really cool eyes. Like I said, collectors, Boglin collectors, really seek these out because of how close they are to the beloved Boglin toy line. Now, I've been able to find a few on the secondary market, and the prices are kind of fair for what they are and what collectors are seeking them out. I think they're really cool, and I definitely remember these on store shelves, but in my mind, I never put one and one together and got boggling. That's a little skull mutant, that's a little pumpkin mutant, and I went about my day. If I only knew then what I know now, I probably would have picked them up, because they were very cheap, and you could find them anywhere. Any five and dime, pharmacy, Kmart, wherever. They were everywhere. And yeah, if I could go back in time, I think I'd grab a couple of these guys. Our fifth and final forgotten 90s monster toy is actually one that slightly confuses me. I don't really know the backstory of it, but what I uncovered, like I said, just kind of boggled my mind. These are Ghost Battalion and Bone Brigade, released by Jasmine in 1995. Now, there are 4 2-packs in total. 2 soldiers, 2 astronaut. And like I said, they're 2-packs, so in total there are 8 figures. And other than the packaging having a different name on it, Ghost Battalion and Bone Brigade are exactly the same. The back of the package, they both even have the exact same comic strip to give you a backstory on these awesome skeletal soldiers or astronauts. Now these are 3 3/4 scale, so they would fit perfectly with your G.I. Joe collection, or even Star Wars if you wanted to throw the astronauts in a galaxy far, far away. These are definitely something that piqued my interest, because I'm a sucker for 3 3/4, and definitely a sucker for adding new things to my G.I. Joe Playtime universe. The ones that I saw for sale online kinda swap out the names or include both of them in the listings. So I don't even think it really matters what name you search for, you're going to get the same thing. But either way, these are really awesome little figures, they have great accessories, and they're just cool. I mean, little skeleton soldiers and astronauts, you can't ask for more. And the prices start on the very reasonable side and go up to the you should have expected it side. So I would love to hunt down these toys and add them to my G.I. Joe collection, because you can't get enough skeletons in your toy collection. Okay folks, that was a look at 5 forgotten 90s monster toys. And I think we got a good look at a little bit of everything. You got some finger puppets, some action figures, some bendy toys. I mean, we got a good cross-section of some 90s monsters. And like I said, I've said plenty, the toy scene of the 90s was, I think, vastly different than that of the 80s. Granted, there were a lot more toy lines around in the 90s, but they all seemed to be tied directly to a property. You didn't have a lot of one-off, crazy, imagination-fueled toy lines like we saw in the 80s, and that's always a bummer. That was the one thing that makes the 80s so great. Now, I'm not taking anything away from the 90s. There were some great toy lines, and it was when I jumped back into the collection game, mostly for McFarlane toys, which, of course, tied to comics that I was reading at the time. But anyway, that's enough of that. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you got something to say, please leave a comment. I love reading them, and I love getting back to everyone. And if you're new around here and you enjoyed this, or any of the episodes that YouTube is recommending down here, please hit subscribe. And if you hit that little bell icon, you'll be notified whenever there's a new episode. So anyway, until next time, thanks for watching. Keep being rad, and stay dorky.